Yo, 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 hey, yo, yo. Mm, 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 mm. God damn it. Yeah, yeah, yo, yo, hey, yeah, yo, what going on? Hitting the same old songs, gaming all night long, 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 gaming all day, wrong, wrong, wrong. I don't wanna be right. I don't wanna get it all night. I just wanna get gone. Everybody got me ringing up the ding dong, and I sing you sing same songs. I gotta get on. I gotta go long. I say so long. My music ain't rocking wrong, but my game is on right. My mind is hitting so tight. My brain is getting so right. You ain't fucking with me tonight. Hey, yo. Hey, yo. Hey, yo. Hey, 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 what? Ding, go. Sing ya, sing day shows. Moving all day long. About to rap, he's gone. Cause got bars that dropping hard. But he ain't got arms, so keep on rolling. That's why I'm not a rapper. I can't fucking freestyle to save my fucking life. My freestyling skills are like what I consider mediocre as fuck. And god damn it, I wish they weren't mediocre as fuck. They're mediocre as fuck. So I just gotta deal with it. What was in the gaming news? Oh, okay. What do you mean no stream? The stream is on right now. Can you not see the stream? I just saw you in TSS's stream, Lightning. The stream is on. I'm a G to the A to the M to the E. I'm a game, I'm a game, I'm a game break. Ooh, 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 ooh. I mean, we got Last of Us 2 stuff that we could talk about. There's been a bunch of announcements of things that are supposed to happen this week. Um, we got some Pokemon related announcements. Like I think tomorrow is Smash and Crash already. Like Crash gets its new game like formally announced, even though it's been leaked like a motherfucker. And then Pokemon gets their other direct, which happens I think on Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, and then Arm's character will be shown off and given probably release date on Monday. Um, I'm probably missing it. I think EA had their little direct and announced a couple of things too. Let's see. EA and I think Burnout on Switch came out, which from what I've seen in analysis videos, that game runs well, which is great because it means we get another decent port that just costs you goddamn much. But I wasn't planning on buying that immediately anyway. What else? I'm looking because I don't remember what all of note. The Law Institute is on fire with negative scores. Yeah. Which we kind of already figured that was going to happen to some degree considering the nonsense that was going on. Uh, let's see. And then it's just been like a bunch of smaller news reports. What do you mean no Pokepod? Pokepod's on Mondays. Also, what's up, Yosef? But yeah, the Pokepod's Mondays. It'll happen tomorrow night at 10. Unless KG's posted something different and hasn't told me yet. But although I wouldn't be on it regardless due to changes in work schedules, I just can't. I can't stay up as late as I want to, which is the reason why I wouldn't do it. Let's see. I heard the Last of Us 2 story was garbage compared to the first Last of Us. Yeah, I've heard pretty much the same thing. I've heard exactly the same thing. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else. So realistically, because we have only certain things we can kind of go into, let's just kind of start with the basic stuff and go from there. What's up, Prince Revolver? Friends say it's more on SJW pandering, which was from the leaks is what we figured anyway. I'm checking KG's Twitter. I'm pretty sure if KG said anything about the pod, he would have told me. But the pod should be coming. I just want to double check. Yeah, there's been no other comments. So yeah, there's a pod tomorrow. I just won't be on it due to like scheduling conflicts. So I guess we can kind of get into it. Let's see. I mean, why implement things that gamers don't really care about, like transgender and stuff? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with having those characters in it. I think more people have issues talking about like what happened. Now, I don't want to get into the spoiler conversation because some people, the game literally just came out like a few days ago, and I heard it's pretty long. So I'm gonna try to avoid going too deep into it. The ending was so bad he broke his controller. I heard a lot of people were pissed. We're not gonna go now. Here's the thing, because the game just came out, we're not gonna get into specifics, but I have looked at a good chunk of cutscenes, not the whole thing. Um, but I know most of the core points. I know about the notorious sex scene. I know about the ending. I've seen the ending of the game, so I know. I started playing the first Last of Us originally. I thought it was overrated. It's surprisingly it's good. The thing about the first Last of Us, from what I always saw, is that Last of Us is kind of like a really linear game that doesn't seem to have proper difficulty progression, and that was like my main issue with it. Also, because I don't care for the genre it's in. Like my main issue with The Last of Us for me personally was always I don't give a fuck about like the third person shooter genre. And I heard the story was great, and I never badmouthed the story of Last of Us because I hadn't played it. But oh yeah, I saw the video. I saw the video, Joseph, of where he cuts the game up after he finishes the game. He does like a full playthrough and then cuts the game in half. Personally, I don't care for the game at all, but I understand why you. I'm trying. The thing is, like, there are a bunch of gamers who still want to play the game and are currently playing the game, and not everyone beat it in 2 fucking days. So I want to at least give people a week before I really start going into spoilers about a game I really don't really give that much of a shit about. But it has been a dumpster fire, and part of it was just the fact of a lack of transparency, and then some dumb things when it comes to the writing. I think the major spoilers we can really talk about, at least because it's in the first 2 hours of the game, from what I hear, is the Joe death scene. That's like the main thing we can talk about because realistically, if you've started playing the game, you've probably already gotten to this point. And if you haven't played the game, you know about this from the leaks or because footage has been going around of it. You literally can't even go online in gaming videos without like Last of Us 2 getting recommended, which means eventually you'll get recommended, oh yeah, Joel dies early on in the game. I feel like that's a spoiler. It's not really a spoiler because it's an early game moment. If it's in within the first 2 to 3 hours, I don't count it as like a spoiler because it's not the whole game, especially for a game that's like 30 some hours long. Um, I think the biggest problem that a lot of people had with him dying wasn't even him dying; it was the way they killed him. Oh, what's up, Sir Digby Chicken Caesar? The Sir Digby sounds very familiar. The lack of communication between the gamers and the developers. Also, a lot of the devs say stupid shit. Personally, don't care for the game. Okay. But yeah, I think the early thing was like the biggest. Why is oh yeah, Edelgard's birthday's today. I was like, why the fuck is Edelgard trending? I'm like, oh, that's right, because it's a birthday today. Of course she would be trending. Um, let's see. I think the problem with the game is that the gamers feel lied to, which is true. The way they killed him, I think that was the main issue. A lot of people, when you give me a character who's like known to be a broken, like badass character who can get out of any situation, you can't then have him die in like the most dumb way possible. Like dying of a disease, fine, you can't control that, but you can't have him die through his own stupidity. Because then it's like, so you regress the character to get away with a death that you know wouldn't have happened normally if it was the first game, which is part of the problem with the way he's killed in this game. Um, Also, it's funny to me for a game that always wants to talk about how gruesome and like gory and violent it is. Like people talk about how like vicious some of the deaths are in this game. This game cuts away a lot. Like it does the thing where you hit him with the golf club, but it's done from the perspective where like you're not directly seeing the effect of it. They do it again with a couple other characters' deaths where they just fucking cut. They like black the screen out, and I'm like, well, that's not just like you show me the like Ellie has these attack animations where she's like uh and you see the character getting scratched up and all this shit, and it usually ends with like a knife to the chest or neck or whatever, and then like we get to the actual cutscene of death, and it's like you might get like one scene of impact, and then like that's it, and it's like, well, that seems out of character. That seems kind of unimportant. It's just, yeah, yeah. What else? Mortal Kombat's more violent. That's true. It's plot inconsistent. That's true. I think I heard someone say you forced to play someone who killed Joel, but I'm not sure if it's true though. It is true. I've seen the gameplay. I know what it is. I'm not gonna get into it, but I have seen it. So let's talk about. See, like I said, we primarily got announcements. We got the Pokemon Snap announcement last week, which is a cool announcement. Now people can shut the fuck up about it. I'm glad that meme is dead. And then we're also getting another Pokemon related direct, like in a like what is it? 3 days? I think it's the 24th. On top of the Crash and the Arms announcement stuff, we're gonna get tomorrow. And I think the thing that bothers me about the Pokemon announcement is that you go look in the comments, and the first thing I keep seeing is Sinnoh remakes. Sinnoh remakes, bro. We want some Sinnoh remakes. And I'm in the back like, bro, why in the flying fuck would you want Sinnoh remakes? And maybe I'm being unreal. I'm being not being realistic. But for me, this is the same company that you guys don't think are even trustworthy enough to develop the main games of Pokemon. People went on these huge tirades about how Game Freak ain't shit, and they shouldn't be developing like the mainline games, and how Bandai, because Bandai, it was revealed that Bandai's the one doing the development for Snap. Is it how is it that Bandai can make a better looking Pokemon game than the developers of Pokemon? Y'all went through all this, and then literally in the comments I keep saying Sinnoh remakes, Sinnoh remakes, and I'm like, bro, why the fuck would you want Sinnoh remakes? I don't understand why Pokemon is the only franchise where it's perfectly fine to keep doing remakes. And I'm gonna tell you flat out as a gamer, if they announce any Sinnoh remakes, I don't even care if it's the Johto Let's Go series. That shit is not getting bought. I'm ignoring that game completely. You ain't getting me caught up on the same fucking nonsense. Because remember, these developers ain't shit, but y'all still want these fucking remakes. And I'm sitting here in the corner like, bro, we don't need remakes every generation. We almost every gen of the games we get remakes. In third, I think you had Gen 1 and Gen 2 that came out normally. Gen 3 had remakes of Gen 1. Gen 4 had remakes of Gen 2. Gen 5 was fine. Gen 6 had remakes of Gen 3. Gen 7 was fine. And if Gen 8 has remakes of Gen 4, which would be on pace for what they normally do, we're going to have a fucking problem, especially when you haven't even released the goddamn all of the DLC for Sword yet. Don't undercut the game already in the middle of it regaining some level of hype. Also, what's up, studio? Sinnoh is coming. Game Freak wants that money. But here's the thing: the remakes don't even do as well as the main games. Almost if you go look up the sales, every remake usually does less than the main games. And I'll double check it just to make sure. But I'm like 90% sure that every remake tends to do worse than the main games. Because the remakes, and I'm even talking about the ones that were good, like fucking Soul Silver, Heart Gold, Fire Red, Leaf Green. Those were great fucking remakes. And none of those games hit this high. I don't even think they hire terrible people. I think realistically, Pokemon, and I've said it before, Pokemon is a victim of its own marketing. It's become so big, and because the games are the catalyst for most of the Pokemon merchandise, the games have to be made at a steady pace. Like that, you can't make new TCG cards without new Pokemon. You can't make a new Pokemon anime without new Pokemon. You can't make new Pokemon merchandise without Pokemon. And so I'm sitting there in the corner going, oh, this is bad. Actually, yeah, I'm looking at the top selling Pokemon games. It's Red, Blue, and Yellow, Diamond and Pearl, Sword and Shield, X and Y, Ruby and Sapphire, Sun and Moon, Black and White, Mystery Dungeon. The first remake that sold like really well was fucking Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. And they still, and granted, it's close because the original sold 16 million and the remake sold 14. They're close, and that might be what it is. They're close enough. Even the remake of Heart Gold, Soul Silver sold 12 million when the originals sold, where are they actually? Oh, sold 23. Let's Go Pikachu Eevee sold 11 compared to the originals that sold 31. And then this Ultra Sun and Moon, which were the last. Well, no, not Ultra Sun and Moon. I'm sorry. The last ones we got were Oris. Oris, I think, was the last one that. No, Let's Go Pikachu was the last one. People are just gonna burn out on it. I'm just so done with the concept of doing remakes again because we don't need it. I'd rather them do what they're trying to do with Gen 8 now, which is focus on one game. But yeah, that was the other problem. Oris wasn't a good remake. That was the other problem I had with it. Like, Oris had things about it that were cool, but like the overall product wasn't great. And see, the problem is the fan base is going to ask for remakes for Gen 4. And Game Freak, if you want to put your foot down about the decks and all that other shit, put your foot down about remakes. Do not put out more fucking remakes. You want to put out an expansion pass? Cool, because at least it's adding to the base game. Don't make another fucking game and undercut the game you put out. It also wouldn't make sense to announce it now, considering you still haven't released the other part of the DLC for Sword and Shield. Don't announce it. That was my problem with Black and White 2. I thought Black and White 2 was a genuine step up from the original game in the sense of like being a sequel and carrying on like the story. And then you undercut the fuck out of that game by it's like it was out for like maybe 3 to 4 months, and then boom, here's the announcement for X and Y, and I'm like, motherfucker. You could not help yourselves, guys. God damn it. I don't even care. A lot of people are saying rumors that the remake is gonna have a different art style. Like it's going for more of that Link's Awakening art style. I don't give a fuck about the art style. Also, it's Gen 4. That's the other problem. It's Gen 4, which is a gen I actively don't really care to play again. I don't know why that happens occasionally. But yeah, like that's my main thing. On top of everything else, like I don't care to play Gen 4 again. So my biggest concern was like, you're about to do another fucking remake which perpetuates the same terrible idea. There's nothing wrong with having gaps in between games. Because on top of me not needing remakes, we also need to have break periods from Pokemon. In the sense of when you put out a game, don't expect me to then in a year to buy another game, and then another year, maybe a year and a half to buy another game, and then in a year and another year and a half to buy another fucking game. I've gotten to the point now where I don't even buy the second version of the games because I'm like I get burnt out on the games. Like remember, Pokemon was like a legit investment in the sense of like these games can entertain you for hours upon hours. Most like almost in every mainline Pokemon game I invested a bunch of time into, I spent like hundreds of hours. I have hundreds of hours in Silver, 100 hours in Ruby and Sapphire, hundreds of hours in Diamond and Pearl. Black and White, I think it was the gen I had was the start was the only gen I kind of fucked up in, and that was only really because we only had like 2 to 3 years with Gen 5. Gen 5 was 2010 through 2012. There was like a year gap. And then even then, and some people go, what about 2013? At the end of 2013, that's when we got X and Y. Which ironically enough, I have hundreds of hours in that. And I was actually cool with them not coming out with a Z version. Because then I kept focused on X and Y. And then Horus came out. And then Sun and Moon came out. And then Ultra Sun and Moon came out. And then Let's Go came out. And then Sword and Shield came out. Pokemon needs gaps in between its games for its development and for people not to get overly fatigued on Pokemon. It's so easy because they won't stop making the fucking games. And you're just tired. I'm just tired of it. So I'm gonna tell you straight out. I'm not gonna get the games. If they're remakes, I'm not getting them. They would have to be some next level shit to justify me buying another fucking remake. That's why I never bought Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, because it's another fucking remake of a gen that's been remade multiple fucking times. I'm done with that. I'm absolutely done with remakes for Pokemon. Them bitches will continue to make less and less money in my eyes, because I'm not paying money for it. It's fucking stupid. They made. I don't even think it was the darker stories. I think if they would just be more willing to focus on the story. The biggest problem, Pokemon didn't start focusing on story until I would say Gen 5. Gen 5 is when story took such a precedence over everything. And guess what everyone said? I don't want story. I want to just catch my Pokemon. That was what people wanted. So Gen 6 is so bare bones in almost every fucking way, other than the fact that it's in 3D. That's such a fucking skeleton of a game. And then we got Gen 7, which did focus on story again. But like that was the most interesting thing about Gen 7, in my opinion. Gen 7 doesn't have a lot going for it. Its characters and story are like my favorite thing. Because the region itself is not as big as it needs to be. And then the challenges, the island trials are nowhere near as like interesting to go through. Hey Ray Dragon. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Hey, listen, and here's my thing. If it's a side project, I'm good. I'm 100% fine with like a Coliseum or Stadium game. I'm perfectly cool with that shit. But man, if it's a hell, you could give me Pokemon Sleep and I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care as much. But do not give me a remake. I don't want it, and the fans don't need it. They think they do. They don't need it. They probably don't have enough time to put a lot of content in the games. They don't. Well, the reason why is because their development cycle is so fucking short. It's almost insane. What's up, Twin Daggers? That's actually my main issue. Is that they're so concerned. Their development cycles are so short. They don't have enough time to put out the content they need to. Um. So yeah. If I'm gonna check the questions actually, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, here we go. The real well, we might as well talk about it because I kind of mentioned it a minute ago. The real Condoniano. Now that the full story is out, what are your thoughts on The Last of Us 2? I understand if you haven't looked up the story, but just know it's garbage. I will never buy another Naughty Dog game until Sony fires Neil Druckmann. We kind of went into it. I'll just say it's. I didn't go through the whole story. I watched like some of the early cutscenes and some of the later cutscenes, so I don't really have full thoughts on the story. But I do recognize that they burned a lot of fans with this game. Uh, the story they were going for, I don't even think was bad. You can tell it's supposed to be like a revenge plot line and having its message around the concept of vengeance, but it was just told poorly. So that's my main thing as far as Last of Us 2 is concerned. And then Deku Tree mentions predictions for next week's announcement. Gen 4, Let's Go Johto, something unexpected. You know what I really would want out of everything you could give me? Either a new side project or Pokken 2. If you gave me Pokken 2, I would openly be way more excited than fucking Gen 4 remakes or Let's Go Johto, which are both terrible fucking ideas. Also, considering Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is like, I think, the lowest of the remakes. I'm actually looking at it right now. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee sold about 12 million, which is close to what Fire Red and Leaf Green sold back on the motherfucking GBA. Like, realistically, Let's Go things, they sold well enough, but realistically, I think it'd be better to just focus on side games, because you'd be surprised how well a good ass side game would sell. Yeah, that's actually, I think that's what it is, Perry. We used to do have 4 to 5 years, and now we have fucking 3 years, and that's lucky. Usually we end up having like one. We usually end up having like two. Funny, a Game Freak announced that, "Hey, new you Pikachu." If they want to do that, that's fine. I don't want any more remakes. I don't want any more mainline remakes. If you want to remake the side games, cool. You think people wouldn't pay for a Stadium 3 and not fucking Battle Revolution again? Because fuck that game. Um, I would 100% be more cool with that than a fucking remake. Also, so let's delete that one from Deku Tree. Of course, Lightning would then ask me, what do I want Game Freak to improve on Gen 9? If you ask me what I think Game Freak should improve on in Gen 9, just to give some quick things, level design is like on the top of the fucking list. Level design and customization. The problem I have is that, and I think part of it is just the way these games are being pumped out so quickly. But like, there isn't a lot of choice on certain things. The online needs to be fixed. That's just a rule of thumb. And I feel like Isle of Armor, as far as level design is concerned, is so fucking close. It's so close, bro. Where you have interesting areas and a lot of different geography and a difference in elevation. So it's actually fun to traverse the area. But like, my problem with the Isle of Armor is still a lack of like explorable areas. Like, it's cool, but it's also still pretty linear with like a few branching pathways in small areas. It's probably the best level design we've gotten in a while from them. But like, I still want better design. We used to have way better design in the other games, especially with me replaying Black recently for Tyrone's commentaries and shit. So like, realistically, that's my main issue as far as that's concerned. Give me more versatility in my traversal. You've already added these small little fucking changes in Gen 8 that makes the experience more fun to go through. Also, just gonna throw this out here. Do not have level scaling based on badges. Don't do that shit. The way level scaling should work is that you should take however Pokemon I have in my fucking box, average their number out and divide it by 6, and then that should be the average level of the Pokemon I'm facing in a trainer battle. Because when you do it, because like people kept saying, oh, they level scale in the Isle of Armor. Not really. They level scale based on badges, not based on levels. So like, if you beat the game, the highest level you're gonna get Pokemon at is like level 60. With Isle of Armor going a little bit higher in that and going into the 70s. But you also made leveling up in this gen stupidly easy with the fucking EXP candies and shit, which is great. But then you have to create enemies and bosses for me to fight that respect that level cap in the form of like level 100 trainers or bosses. Because otherwise, like most people probably ended up doing with the Isle of Armor, you steamrolled it. And if you didn't steamroll it, you had to handicap yourself to make it more challenging. The way you handicap yourself is either A, you only use cut food, or you only use cut food, or you intentionally use Pokemon in the same level bracket. And that was the problem. The Shadow Pokemon mechanic, the problem with Coliseum and XD is that they're just slow ass games. That's like one of the biggest problems with those games. They're slow, and it's another game that kind of suffers from like having an interesting setup but not really following through with it. Although I still say Coliseum has a better atmosphere than XD. XD is more like XD is more of a fusion of like mainline Pokemon with like Coliseum. So you get kind of like this pseudo light and happy vibe with some weird aesthetics from like Coliseum. So I'm very conflicted on that. I wouldn't mind a Coliseum remake, but I feel like you need to change that game inherently. They also need to get more open about voice acting and like character dialogue that would help some of these sequences. I feel like Gen 8 has a bunch of sequences in the main game that would do way better if you gave me like legit voice acting and cutscenes for them. What am I doing after this? I'm probably gonna chill out for an hour and then go to bed because unfortunately my fucking work schedule changed. So I actually had to get up at like 7, which means I had to wake up at like 6, which means I gotta go to sleep at least somewhere around like 11, 10 or 11. So that's the main thing. Yeah, the Iron Armor is fun. It's still kind of short. The story's short as fuck. And I'm only disappointed because there was so much more you could have done. And especially because there's like weird little things they do too. Like how certain gym leaders will show up in the Isle of Armor. Like I ran the Raihan, I've seen people run into Milo, and then the Hop is included. And I'm like, this be cool shit if you kept expanding on it. That's what I was hoping the Isle of Armor would be. So it's a short romp through a cool area and new Pokemon. So it ends up like, and when you realize it's only supposed to be $15 worth in that part of it, I'm kind of like, eh. I mean ramen noodles. This is ramen noodles. I wouldn't say marketing lied. I want to say the previews lied. But the point is that it's not the kind of leveling we wanted. It's still based off a badge number, and I'm like, bro, that's not gonna cut it. You need to do real leveling in the sense of like real scaling, where it's based off of what your team is, not off of how many badges you have. That might work for the main game. That does not work for anything else. It only really works for the main game. Post game should never be level scaled to the badges. And to be fair, the main game, I'm fine with the way it is in the sense of like the way the scaling works. But fuck, and I absolutely mean fuck, Isle of Armor suffers a lot because of it. Although I didn't go back and do the rematch with Mustard, so I don't know if he gets like progressed like insanely harder or just a little harder. Knowing Sword and Shield, he'll probably only get like a little harder. Oh yeah. What does everyone think about the dumbass rhythm game we got announced for Kingdom Hearts that's coming to I think all the major consoles? I think. I know it's Switch, PS4 at least, and I'm pretty sure it includes Xbox. That seems to be Kyrie focused. So what does that mean? All the side games until Kingdom Hearts 4 are going to be Kyrie focused, which part of me is not against it. At the same time, it's a fucking rhythm game. So like, all we're really gonna do. No, the DLC's 30. But the DLC also includes the Tundra stuff, which we haven't seen yet. And the Tundra stuff, ironically, looks better, especially because the Tundra stuff is supposed to be exploration based. Like this apparently was more battle focused, and the Tundra's meant to be more exploration focused. And we know that there's like a cool double battle you get to do in Tundra with like Hop and Raihan and Leon and yourself. So I actually probably say Tundra's probably gonna end up being the better one. Now that Snap is getting a sequel, you think many other Pokemon spin-off games like Coliseum could get a sequel? I'm not against Coliseum or well, Coliseum technically has a sequel in XD. You mean probably more of like a distant sequel, probably. I actually like the world of like Coliseum because it's kind of like this grimy, gritty punk feel to it. Actually, I think Galar kind of fits in that same kind of vibe. So I think they would both work well with each other. But we'll wait and see to see what this new project is for next week. Um. Oh yeah, the fact that they made a rhythm game for Kingdom Hearts before telling you about Final Fantasy Remake 2. I don't trust Square at all. Thoughts on more DLC for Sword and Shield? I kind of want to that actually. I like the rhythm games, so I don't mind Kingdom Hearts Melody and Memories. I don't. I mean, I'm not against them doing spin-offs. They've always kind of done spin-offs, weird spin-offs anyway. I like the idea of the spin-offs being focused on Kyrie. That's part of my interest in it is that the spin-offs would be focused on Kyrie because I want to see her do shit because in the main game she's just not gonna be shit. Like I think I've come to that realization. After 3, I just recognize Kyrie ain't gonna be shit in the main games. So let her be something in the side games. Um, I'm not against more Sword and Shield DLC, but it depends on how long Gen 8 lasts. Like think about it, Gen 6 lasted all the way up from 2013 to I want to say 2016, and then no, I think it was actually earlier than that. Like Gen 6 only lasted like 2 years or something. It was like 2016 to 20 no 2013 to 2016. Then it was like 2016 to 2018 maybe. Gen 7 didn't last that long either. And then because Gen 8 started in 2019. These gens are so short now, so it depends if they want to keep that slow ass progression. Basically, it made everyone hate the franchise because of 3. Yeah, that's the main thing. 3 is just a disappointing game. Not the worst Kingdom Hearts game. Well, I don't know. I think I'm very conflicted. 2 is the best of the main 3. I just don't know if I would play 3 over 1. Just I think 1 has terrible platforming. I don't know. That one's debatable. 3 and 1, I'm very conflicted with. Oh, 2016 to 19. Oh yeah, because wait, what was the last Gen 7 game? What was the last Gen 7 game, or do you only count when Gen 8 came out? Yeah, 3 years seems to be the rule for the most part though. Um, which is like the main issue. So it's not that I wouldn't want more DLC, but considering we're not even done with the first year of Pokemon, and the second batch of DLC comes out at the end of this year, which is only in the first year of Pokemon, and they're gonna I don't know what they're gonna do because they've already ignored the idea of making a third version. So if that's the case, that means what are you gonna do for the next 2 years of Gen 8? You're gonna have to do something, which means we're either gonna get a Let's Go game. Don't you count Let's Go, which is 2018? 2018, I don't count. 2018 is weird because I don't. I mean, Let's Go is weird because I don't know if that counts as a Gen 7 or Gen 8 thing. Some people would say Gen 8 because of it being on the Switch, but that's one of those anomaly generations. I actually would say Gen 8. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's why I say 2018 is kind of a weird situation. Actually, but I did want to get into the crux of the reason why the title is the way it is. So, so we're gonna let the Pokemon conversation die for right now, only because we're gonna talk more about it next week when we get the announcement of the DLC. I mean the announcement, not the announcement of the whatever comes in this next Pokemon Direct. What I wanted to talk about is the Western Queen, which is I was watching Clocked's video about the PlayStation 5 event and him kind of going through that conversation. And I guess they count it as Gen 7. I guess because of the remake, they don't count new generations starting with remakes. I guess that makes sense. Um, the reason why it's called the Western Queen is primarily due to the idea that Clocked It, when he made his video, he made up an interesting point of saying that the one of the things that he's kind of bummed out going into this new generation, which is why he's not overly excited for like the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, is kind of who's in charge in terms of the popular gaming developers. And originally, for a while, it used to be the Japanese were running shit. The Japanese were running all that shit. And it's obvious and very clear now, especially now, that Americans are primarily running the games industry in terms of which IPs are popular and what direction games are going. We definitely have now geared ourselves into a more Western approach. And I'm curious what you guys think as far as that's concerned, whether or not that's a cool or interesting or good thing, or if you're kind of like, I don't know if I really want to have that. I kind of miss the Japanese because that to me that's interesting. Like when you go back and think of your favorite games, how many of them are Western inspired or Japanese inspired? I would say how many of them are Japanese games, but the problem is modern Japanese companies, some of them have gone the Western approach. Square's done it, Capcom's done it, Sega's done it, uh, Sony's done it. So I'm curious where people Kojima's done it. So I'm curious where people stand on that argument. So I'm gonna eat the rest of this, and y'all let me know how y'all feel. God damn. Whew. Okay, there we go. All right, so Red Dragon's the one who really posted something, but we can kind of get into it. So he goes, "I like Japanese games more, but I don't think Western games are as bad as people put them." I don't think that Western games are bad. It's just that the design philosophy when it comes to making and creating those games, it tends to hit different. I prefer the Japanese inspired games, but we need both. Western games are the movie like experience, and Japanese is for the more weird and experimental games, which is true. I hate when developers westernize Japanese games because it doesn't need it. Okay, so here's the thing. As much as people don't want to admit it, realistically, the king of the games right now is Western, and I don't like that Western's ahead because a lot of you guys are kind of in the same boat. I prefer Japanese style games. Even like the Japanese developers who make Western style games, those games, it's a hard thing to describe because it's two different sensibilities. Like, give you an example, like using Nintendo for example. Nintendo always says they come up with a gameplay idea that's fun and then they kind of stick a character to it. It's one of the reasons why people get mad at them about not using certain IPs, but they don't look as their IPs to make games. They make games and then we see which IP fits with that game idea, which is why certain things. That's why we got Splatoon in the first place because there was no Nintendo IP that fits with the concept of shooting uh, ink, and having interesting the game design around the ink shooting and refilling your ink and turning into a squid. So they just made the Inklings. I imagine Arms was in a similar vein where it's like we want to have a fighting game with characters with stretchy arms, but there are no video game characters in Nintendo's library that really fit that bill. So let's just make some. And I guess, and I can understand why Clocked It was depressed in his video because the thought process is like, bro, Western games unfortunately hit this weird bar of being samey after a while. And I think who was it? Anime Rapper? Yeah, Anime Rapper who mentioned how we need both. Which is true, although I would personally argue that Japanese style games tend to bring the bigger changes in game design moving forward as like an industry. We tend to get funner design. Like even the Western developers who will go in that route, what are they inspired by? The weird Japanese games they played as a kid that kind of changed and dictated how they wanted to approach game design, and that's why they made a game that feels Japanese inspired. Like the movie game just doesn't do shit for me at all. Like the walking down a corridor to have a conversation that leads to like a cutscene, and then the cutscene lasts like 10 to 20 minutes sometimes, depending on the game. And I'm just sitting there in the corner, like, bro, like it's not that this is terrible, but I'm just not invested. Like the advantage of having a game that's gamey as hell is that you get the goofy fun shit, and that you have mechanics that are inherently designed to make you enjoy the game more or just make you smile. Whereas sometimes, like with a story, you're trying to give me like a narrative message, and the gameplay has to kind of like bend and twist and shit to fit that narrative. And that's what the problem is. But you still gotta have a. It's still a video game, so you still have to have gamey sections. I actually would say making a Western game is harder because of the whole. You have to like bend 6 or 7 parts to get it to fit into the story narrative you want, without it looking weird and gamey. And for example, Last of Us being one of those examples, you then have situations where you get into a new area and realize there's like a very low amount of like enemies around because they want you to get to the story, or you were like railroaded into one specific direction because they want you to get to the story, and that shit kind of takes away from the fun of the game. You can enjoy yourself when you're, especially as a gamer, you become more and more aware of these little tricks as it happens. Like, oh, I'm walking down the street, I turn the corner, and there's a big ass pile of boxes conveniently in the middle of the road. I guess I can't go there. I guess I gotta run over here, and oh shit, there's a broken sign that happens to be blocking an area. And you start noticing all these little cues and shit. Actually, Resident Evil does this a lot. The remakes, I probably would say Resident Evil 3, it's more apparent. Where like Resident Evil 3, you have to go like through these different areas outside to get to where you need to be to do the objectives of the mission. And although I find Resident Evil 3 remake pretty fun, it still has that same level of weird railroading where you can't organically create a situation that makes sense, that you would be funneled into one direction. And not to say that a game is bad for being linear. I'm just trying to make the point that like that kind of game design just takes you out of it. Or the fact that like Western games, the genre they're the most proud of is shooting, which to me is like the least interesting game to play because everything looks the fucking same. Shooters is a genre that really blends in into itself. Um, the QTE concept. The QTE concept is another Western idea, but you had Japanese companies that were implementing it. Actually, I would say Resident Evil 4 was probably the father of QTEs, or at least one of the bigger contributors, like one of the founding fathers of QTEs. Western gamers love that shit. Japanese gamers are like, especially depending on the game. Like, for example, Bayonetta is absolutely frustrating that I'm playing a level, and then I get to a cutscene, and then in the middle of the cutscene, it's like, hit up and B at the same time at a split second's notice. In the original Bayonetta, it's like, if you don't do that shit immediately, oh, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. I'm dead. Fuck. And that's like my issue. That's my problem with Red Dead 2. They tried making it too realistic. It felt like the only thought about the animations and not the game mechanics, and that's true. Games, that's the other main thing that irks me about Western games. Western games, QTE is quick time event. That's what QTE means, quick time event. The problem with Western games is that they're more concerned on looks and what's fun. Like, for example, like compare, I know people are going to hate it, but let's compare Red Dead 2 to Breath of the Wild. Red Dead 2 has that fucking mechanic where you can like skin an animal, right? It has that mechanic where your beard will grow out realistically and you have to do campfire shit. But like Zelda has similar mechanics, but they're done in almost completely different ways. For example, also the problem is that the other problem is that Western games are so focused on being realistic that when inevitably some gamey shit has to happen, it's way more jarring in a Western game. To give an example, when you set up camp in Red Dead 2, it just happens. Like, and what I mean is, like, you do it, it plays a cutscene, and you automatically end up in an open field. Boom. I made camp. Whereas with Zelda, it's like usually you don't even have to do the camping with Zelda. Zelda doesn't care, but Zelda allows you to have a camping like experience where you can carry wood and flint. You hit the flint with your sword that sparks, that creates a fire that you can put under like a like secluded area or a cave, and then you can have kind of like a BS campsite. You don't ever need to do it, but it's some cool shit you can do. Or like how Red Dead 2 has the ability to skin animals, but Zelda, you throw an arrow at a bear or a moose or a deer or a fox, and it's like boom, and it poofs and turns into meat. It turns into like a slab of meat and boom. Obviously, Zelda's more cartoony and it's not realistic at all. But also, you don't have to sit through a 5-minute cutscene of Arthur rolling the animal over, pulling out his knife, starting to cut into the animal and trying to pretty much strip its fucking fur off. Then we have various cutscenes of him flipping the animal over and doing the other side, wrapping up the fucking fur, putting it on his back, wrapping up the fucking animal, putting it on his back. Then the final cutscene where he walks over to the horse and he puts it all on the horse. The realism is great, although they still cut shit out of it. It's a sped up version of realism, but the realism looks cool, but it doesn't mean anything. But then you get into situations where you ride on your horse and then you get into a gunfight. You get off your horse to participate in the gunfight. Realize your equipment's still on the fucking horse. How is that fun? And oh, by the way, we changed your loadout because that is what you cared about. That shit wasn't important. You cared about how you could grow your beard in real time. That's my problem with Western gaming. Western gaming gives a fuck about things that don't mean anything in gameplay. And then people want to talk shit about, oh, but all these anime characters have spiky hair and giant fucking swords. That shit isn't realistic. And yet people sit there and cried over Final Fantasy VII. Motherfuckers cried over that game. Motherfuckers were in tears. That game means so much to so many people. The motherfuckers were absolutely ecstatic when they heard Square was remaking it. Just because the character, to me, that like what in the one idea with Western gaming and just Westerners in general is that people look at cartoons as not being able to have any real depth or meaning. But then we'll look at like any realistic movie, regardless of the quality, and say that's for adults. When that's not necessarily the case every time. And I guess that's what frustrates me is that Western gaming's taking over, and like a lot of Western gaming sensibilities are just not fun to indulge in. Because I don't give a fuck about how good your hair looks. I don't give a fuck about how detailed your shirt is. I don't give a fuck about how realistic I can grow hair out in the game. Or that I can shave it with my fucking PlayStation VR arm and do, like when I do this, I'm actually going zzz, 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 zzz. That shit just doesn't hit with me. Let me look here. I almost skipped Japan over America. America likes to prioritize style over substance. I thought Shenmue was the first game to have quick. Yeah, actually, that's true. Shenmue would be the first game. Period, you mean presentation over fun gameplay. I like Horizon. Seems like you didn't have to do the story as much. seems more on gameplay than story. And obviously, we have our outliers. I mean, I'm not gonna deny there, and I'm not gonna say that Western games aren't fun to some degree. I'm just saying it's those small little sensibilities that tend to like tick me off and put me in a bad mood or in a bad state of mind. And when I think about this is the dominant gaming genre type to the point where Square and Capcom are making their own westernized games. You know what people can't stand about the newer Final Fantasies? They're more westernized and stupid. That's not the whole problem, mind you, especially with the 13 series. Also, thank you for the donation, Sora-san. I appreciate it. So I missed your most of the stream today. It's crazy though. Hope you had a great day. Also, happy birthday. Oh yeah, thank you for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it, Sora-san. Thank you. Um, I hate when games have to have a bit where your character has to squeeze through a tight space. Tomb Raider. That's the other thing. They all tend to use the same kind of gimmicks in terms of hiding loading screens. And you can be creative with it, or you could just say fuck it. For example, Bayonetta has that whole you just fight in this weird dead zone area as the game loads the new area. In a lot of Western games, it's crawling under something or sliding through something or fucking or like a cutscene. A cutscene's usually hiding a loading screen in a way. Um, they're all little tricks you have to do. Granted, that to me isn't the worst. My issue is game design, and then the other problem I have with Western games currently is the denial of a jump button. Like fuck all that to the point where like Last of Us 2 was like, we have a jump button now, and I'm like, yeah, but do you have areas that have like huge changes in elevation to make use of the jump button? Because if you don't, it doesn't fucking matter. Like in the example, Zelda, you have a jump button. You can jump off of towers and paraglide to a next area. Hell, you can jump off a mountain and snowboard down that bitch. Like, and then and if I jump, I can do jump dodges and shit. Like, you gotta have to have some looseness with your realism so the game can be more fun to play. And I feel like that gets lost in the need to like make everything look realistic. I always say Western gaming always felt like the nerd who got good enough to make their game look like borderline art and now is seeking approval from the people who shunned video gaming in the first place. That's the vibe I get from like Western gaming in a lot of situations. I'm gonna make something that looks artsy fartsy and beautiful, like the Detroit or Heavy Rain games, to like justify that my decision in life was worth it. Western developers are about to have a gameplay over graphics moment with Crash 4. True, but I mean, we still got to wait for that game to come out and see how it plays. And I still need to beat Crash 2 and 3. The cutscenes in Last of Us 2 are all hiding loading screens. Skip any cutscene, and the loading screen will be almost as long as just watching the scene always. Anyways, 13 gameplay wise didn't feel Western. You could just destroy everything. You couldn't just destroy everything. Yeah, that's why I say I was more thinking of 15 than I was 13 personally. I should have just said 15. So that was a mistake on my end. But yeah, that's kind of my main gripe. I'm not gonna answer all the questions. I'm starting to take the advice of like keeping certain questions for other streams. So I'm gonna answer a couple of them, and then we'll get out of here. Um. Oh, do you think rhythm games are the easiest games to make? Hmm. Do I think they're the easiest games to make? No, I probably would say I think racing games are probably the easiest games to make, especially if they're incremental racing games. I'm trying to think of another genre that's super easy to make. Oh Jesus! I would have said Sims, but I don't think is easy because Sims still requires a bunch of different like interactions and shit that you have to take into account when you play The Sims. Like The Sims requires some level of thought and concentration to create like a quality Sims experience. I think racing and rhythm games are easy in their own right, but I think rhythm it's more of a in rhythm games they kind of justify by making like complex animations and dancing animations for characters, and depending on how it's done, like Hasane Miku has it where the button layout strobe across the screen, and you have to time the button presses, and they pop in and pop out. I mean, rhythm games are easy, but I would say like something like racing games are probably either just as easier, at least just as easier in some cases. So that's my thoughts on that. What we got? Oh, as far as my thoughts on Pokemon Snap was a game I grew up with, but I wasn't like overly obsessed with it. That's my thing with Pokemon Snap. It's not a bad game. I don't hate it by any means, but it definitely hits that. I enjoyed it when I played it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. That's why I'm not overly concerned. Oh, quick predictions. Oh, that's fine. With arms, I hope it's Min. I hope it's Min. I inherently hope it's Min. People keep asking for Twintail. Twintail isn't even like what I consider like a main line in arms. Twintail is like the part of the roster that you find out about once you start playing the game. Like to me, the mains would be um Springman, Ribbon Girl, Min, Ninjara, and then probably I would include like Master Mummy and Mechanica. Those are like the mains, right? Min, I think, is the best choice because Springman's already a trophy, and Ribbon Girl only adds like an extra jump. I think Min has the more interesting setup and moveset. And realistically, what I think it's more going to be, I think the more realistic option is just to do an amalgamation character, a character that kind of carries all the gimmicks, or at least a good chunk of the gimmicks from all the arms characters. For example, you can get a third arm charging like Dr. Coil does. When you guard, you can heal like Master Mummy does. You and When using certain arm attacks, you get super armor like Master Mummy, Mechanica, and Max Brass get. Um, they could have a slowdown counter, which essentially would be like Bayonetta's, but it would also be a reference to Twin Tails. You can get an extra jump. Maybe they're one of the only characters that has 3 jumps, like Ribbon Girl. They also have kicking techniques, a la Min. You can even add something for like Lollipop, where like the guard heals and you also inflate. So if you break the shield, you can take more damage. Like if you shield break the arms character because they're like blown up like Lollipop does when she guards, you can get the hit. And actually, you could even have that. You can jump out of a guard, meaning if you jump out of a block and smash, you jump high, which is what Helix and Lollipop can do. Misango has the mask, which I don't know how you could implement correctly, and I don't know if they would give an arms character like if it was an amalgamation character, if they would give the ability that Springtron has, where he can do that shockwave and disable your arms. Although that would be a cool gimmick that he could do that every once in a while if you're in proximity, do it and it like disables your A attack. So the only way, like if you were Mario, you couldn't do your basic punch kick combo. You actually would have to resort to your specials. Um, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of any other arms gimmicks you can add in there. Misango has the masks, but I don't think that works as well. Max Brass just has super armor. Master Mummy defend Bite and Bark is just a second character with the dog. That one doesn't really work. Kid Cobra has a dodge that you could probably add in there, which is that um, the default running speed for the character may be like relatively fast, which may be within itself a reference to Kid Cobra's quick ass dodging speed. Maybe if you time a button press right, you can do like a spot dodge. Your spot dodge makes you disappear like Ninjara does in arms. Uh, I think that's it. I think those are the main things. The problem is I'm be at work when the Sakurai thing is going on, so I gotta hope I get like a dead zone at work. We'll see because of how the job situation is going to be, but yeah, I hope that's what happens. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you can add in. I think those are like the main things you could do for an amalgamation character. But if I'm talking about one of the characters, I'm hoping it's Min Min. Springman is too basic. Rim and Girl is too basic. I would hope it's either Min Min. Twintail. My biggest problem with Twintail is that she's so close to Bayonetta, it's aggravating. Fights with her hair, has an ability where she can slow down things around her. I'm like, why? And that's like her two main gimmicks. I'm trying to think of what the other thing you could do. Oh, I could say you could also add it where the amalgamation character has a long grab range. So unlike something like Luigi's like plunger, where you had to no, was it plunger? What was his grab? I think it's the plunger where you shoot it out and you grab the enemy and you pull them out. But if you miss, you're screwed. I think the arms characters could have a similar grab where their grab is literally like their punching stance, but just a little bit longer. But they have a quicker reaction time than Luigi does. Ribbon Girl is kind of basic. I mean, but she's meant to be. The only gimmick Ribbon Girl has is the fact that she can jump high. She has 3 jumps. That's like her main thing. I think I think that's her only thing is that she can jump high. But that's a personal opinion. But yeah, if you ask me what team I rep as far as arms are concerned, Min Min all day. I hope the Pokemon Direct is either a Pokken 2, a spin-off title. Please to God, no remakes. Crash announcement's cool. I'm glad people will get that. And I'm hoping we get maybe a casual Nintendo mainline game announcement. Because we still only have the July release of Origami King, which is cool, but we need more than that. All right, Lightning. Now you're just getting defensive. Also, I am looking forward to wholesome Sakurai moments. Also, I think people just want to see inside his house, like dead ass. I'm talking about gameplay wise, not in terms of lore. I know she's a celebrity in the lore. Actually, so is Twintail though. Twintail's a fucking movie star. I'm talking about in terms of gameplay, not in terms of lore. Which God, we need more lore. I would totally be down for a low key Arms 2 announcement because I'm a weak bitch and I don't care. Although people would be mad because then it would essentially confirm that they're not working on Mario Kart 9 since it's the Mario Kart team that made Arms. So, I mean, it's been 3 years and the original Splatoon got a sequel in like 2. Splatoon came out 2015 and then got a sequel in 2017. So, and it's been 3 years since Arms came out. Arms came out like 3 years ago, back in and like on my birthday actually. That game released on June 16th, my birthday. So yeah. Yeah, see, that's what it is. People are gonna be inspecting the fuck out that man's house. I already know what's up, bro. Y'all gonna be sitting there. People, I think apparently he has a cat, and people want to see his cat. People just want to spy in that man's house, which is partially creepy but adorable because I understand people's fandom of Sakurai. Sakurai is like literally one of the most likable game developers. Period. Especially when you get like stuff like Banjo Kazooie or the Terry demonstration, where you can tell he put a lot of heart and thought into how to design those characters and have them be like uh, good representations of their series. So yeah, I can understand. I understand. I completely understand. I am finished with The Last of Us Part 2. I enjoy it. I'm glad you do, because a lot of gamers don't enjoy it. That's true, but I mean, Mario Kart 8, the last thing the deluxe edition of Mario Kart 8 was the last thing they did, and that was 3 years ago. And even that was just minor changes, nothing crazy. But let's see. And I already answered Sora-san's question. But I'm gonna get out of here because unfortunately life calls. I'd be down for an Arms 2 personally, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys on for all the birthday wishes on like Twitter and shit, and just the support in general because you guys don't have to do what you guys do. I appreciate it. Like I said, and Episode 50 is the waifu and husbando cast. So if you want to join that, let me know. The only person I have in there so far is Sora-san. So if you're interested in being a part of the waifu husbando cast, that's going to be episode 50. Let me know. Still working on a new channel that I want to do to kind of like be a purely dedicated gaming channel. And once that's up, I'll let you guys know. And I think those are all the major things. And then tomorrow I'll be on the Juicy Loose podcast. I won't be on the PokePod only because work. So blame work is the reason why I'm not on the PokePod tomorrow. But I will be on the Juicy Loose because that comes on at an earlier time where I'll still be up. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the support. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll catch you guys later. So later days. Life's a game, play to win. Peace. Oh, 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 way, oh, 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 oh. Sorry. You turn 29 and shit just goes crazy. Also, just so you can guys see, sister bought me balloons, so I have giant 29 balloons still in here. I need to pop these things. They've been in here for like almost a week now. In time, child, in time.